Hello, viewers. Welcome to our today episode. Again, my name is Dr. Jesse. We are discussing how to mobilize resources for expansion of your business. So, resource mobilization is paramount in any organization, whether it's for profit or non-profit or even government agency. And it is imperative to ensure that there is long-term sustainability of the organization. Many NGOs, for instance, have sustained cash flow coming from donor communities, and resource mobilization makes it possible for the organization to continuously offer services or products to its clients, customers, and beneficiaries. And therefore, resource mobilization can be taken by all types of organizations to enable them to achieve their strategic goals. And it ought to be aligned with the organization's strategic plan. So you need to ensure that in your strategic plan, you have identified ways that you can mobilize resources for expansion or to cater for a certain activity. Resource mobilization refers to all types of activities that are geared toward securing new or additional resources for an organization. It also involves making better use of and maximizing existing resources. Resource mobilization is also referred to as new business development. It's a process that identifies the resources. It's a process that identifies the resources essential for the development, implementation of the strategy, and continuation of work for the achievement of the organization's mission and strategic objectives. Resource mobilization strategy. Whenever we are mobilizing resources, we should be strategic. Why should an organization, for instance, come up with a resource mobilization strategy? This can help in enhancing the image of the organization and expand relation dimensions with other partners or other organizations that collaborate with the firm, and to enhance relation with the key stakeholders and the community. You come up with a strategy so that you can enhance relationship with the various stakeholders, because stakeholder management is key. You need to ensure that everyone is satisfied in whatever you are doing, and they need to feel that it's being done in a proper manner, or they have been consulted, especially if they have interest in whatever you are doing. Also, to manage the program based on the genuine needs of the community should be engaged and should have identified, for instance, the priority program based on the urgent needs that are there. Resource mobilization strategy can help in fulfilling responsibility towards the community, because we operate within an environment in which you have a community, and the community will be considered whenever you are coming up with a way of mobilizing resources for a certain project or program. This will also help to develop new thinking and challenge the old tradition that do not add any value. So whenever you come up with a strategy, it will help in new thinking, because every time the environment is changing, you may want to do things differently. It will enhance the dignity of the organization. The image of an organization is key. So whatever you are doing, you need to ensure that you are not just doing it anyhowly. You need to apply some strategy, and you need to also make a decision as to where and how you can generate those, you can mobilize those resources. So there are some sources that you may need to say no. You may need to be firm on some areas whereby you believe, for instance, the resources may not have been gotten in an ethical way. You may not want to be associated in getting those kind of resources as for the intention of helping you to mobilize those resources for your particular activities. It will help to decrease dependency on others. At times, you may be so dependent on others, but if you use a strategy, it will guide on how we can minimize dependence on others. To diversify and expand organization resources for the implementation of certain program. So it will help in diversification and expansion of organization resources, and it will help the organization to spend on the programs based on the organizational priorities. So we know that a firm could be having so many programs or projects that it plans to undertake, but prioritization is also key, so that you first spend resources on the high quality projects or programs. Also, a strategy in mobilization of resources will help in sustainability of organization programs to ensure that whatever you are doing is sustainable, so that you can have a continuous flow of resources that you are mobilizing. It in enhancement of ethics and integrity. We have talked about ethics and integrity. You can consider sources. Where are these donors getting their money from? So you may want to consider that to protect the image of the organization. Also, for maximum utilization of domestic capital, skills, and technology. If you have a strategy, you will maximize utilization of the resources that you have, the skills and technology in any organization. Again, it helps to outline how an organization will organize the process of prioritizing, planning, selecting projects, monitoring and evaluation, broadening the resource channel, as well as coordinating with resource providers in mobilizing and effectively utilizing those resources. So the overall objective of resource mobilization strategy is to ensure that there is a clear, systematic, predictable, and well-coordinated approach for soliciting, acquiring, and utilization, management, reporting, and monitoring the so mobilized resources. What are some of the benefits of relying on local resources? Many managers may, especially in NGOs, they focus externally, but it is also important that you may want to look inward. You may want to look at local resources, whereby you can mobilize resources from the local sources. And this can bring a sense of ownership. So the sense of ownership comes from the pride and accomplishment of knowing that they have done to make their community a better place to live in. You'll also be building social capital. It refers to the value of social network and the increased willingness of individuals and organizations to help one another as a result of those relationships. Also, it brings about sustainability. Mobilizing local resources increases the sustainability of community incentives. It also brings about independence. When we are raising resources locally, it gives the organization that is raising the fund more independence and flexibility to implement activities that targets needs that are community find important. Also, it helps to ensure that organization has a clear, coordinated approach to soliciting, acquiring, utilizing, monitoring, and managing of financial inflows and developing cooperation support. It would also help us to enhance the effectiveness of development assistance in the area of operation. Local resources also have other benefits. It improves the relation and dialogue between an organization and the international cooperative partners. Other objective is to align the international cooperating partner support to the organization in question, common agenda, priority areas, the systems, the structures, and the procedures. It would also help in increasing domestic resource mobilization and broaden the resources channel by exploring alternative sources of funding to reduce dependence on resources from international cooperating partners and to strengthen the organization's leadership and capability in project implementation. Whenever you plan to mobilize resources, you can consider it's an event. It is a process and not an event, and you need to plan for. You may want to plan for it, and the first thing that you may want to do, or you ought to do, is assessment of the current situation. You need to assess the current situation, the finances that you have, the projects or the program that you want to undertake, and the assessment will give you the status quo. You'll now go to stage 2, whereby you can identify the required resources for the project. What is the required resources that you want to mobilize? What can you offer internally from within the organization, and what are you seeking to mobilize from outside? Step 3, compare what is needed and what is available to determine the gap. So you need to do that. Stage 4, identify potential sources of needed resources. You can come up with a possible list of potential sources of needed resources. Step 5, you can outline best strategies for approaching stakeholders. These are the donors and partners you may want to approach to assist in financing your program or your projects. Outline monitoring and review mechanism. You need to outline the monitoring and review mechanism. How will you be monitoring and reviewing what you have done? And step 7, you document, or documentation of all activities. You need to document all the activities. So if, for instance, now you have been given money for a certain project, you need to do documentation. You need to also give feedback, which is the next step, reporting. You need to report and give feedback on how you have spent the resources, especially if those resources were meant to undertake projects or program to benefit third party. So that is how we can go about fundraising resources in our organization, whether it is for non-governmental organization or even limited companies, probably, or humanitarian organization. And I have seen such organization mobilize resources in the local context, and they have been able to even generate good amount of resources to undertake some of the project that they may want to undertake. Take, for instance, drought, a stricken area whereby the communities may need to be supported. I have seen some NGOs and humanitarian bodies use digital platform to mobilize resources from the citizen, and that has worked very well in some countries like Kenya. So you can consider planning and having a strategy on how you can mobilize resources to finance some of the programs or projects that should want to benefit the community or those who need those services. So thank you so much for listening. You can hit the like button and the bell down there. And thank you and God bless.